And Johnny came in that afternoon. I told him, he said, "You did what? You cannot do this. You don't know how to do it. You can't do it." So,
oh my God.
So you're going to go with me. So we went over there together, came back. I did
what were you thinking? Like, what is that?
I don't think.
I mean, right. Well, that helps. Is that, do you think that's is that it?
Yeah. If I stopped to think about what I was doing, I would never do it.
Like, what if you wrote out a plan? That would just ruin everything, wouldn't it?
That. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't follow a plan. I won't sit still on it.
All right, welcome back to the show, Conversations Beyond Table 5. I'm sitting here today with one of my favorite people in the world, no matter how many last names you know her as, Dianne Ryan Jackson, Meek, Light, you name them. This is the Diane of Diane's on Devine, to Prados, Nebraskas, just Sudies, all kinds of things that we're about to hear about. I get so many compliments on my personality and customer service at Crave. I think Ula says it's my strongest point, and so many the customers say that it's my strongest point. And it all comes from this lady, Dianne Light. That's your last name right now, right?
For now, yes. Yeah. It's been that way for about 28 years now, so that's good.
Oh my gosh! Well, that's a record.
Yeah, pretty much. It is.
That's awesome.
Thanks, John. You're really starting this out great.
Anytime.
Am I through now?
No.
Oh.
We still have a few more things to discuss.
Okay.
So, where to begin? We've known each other for so many years, almost, well over 30 years, probably longer than that, but we'll get the calculators out later. How did it all start for you? Why the restaurant industry? What happened?
Okay. I'll have to tell a quick story which gets us to why I ended up in the restaurant industry. I was the oldest of 4 children. My father at that time had heart problems, so I knew I couldn't go to college. So when I graduated from high school, my mother let me go to the beach for a week. And then when I got home, she woke me up, stuck a newspaper in my hand and said, "Go to work." So she sent me to an insurance company on Devine Street. And I didn't know at that time, but she had already talked to the owner or the gentleman in charge, and I had the job. So I went to work for the insurance company as a hostess with another girl. We were both 17 years old and didn't know anything about what we were doing. And the first thing that happened, and this is how I met my first husband, which was very interesting. He came downstairs. He was one of the salesmen at the insurance company. He came downstairs with a friend and told the other girl and myself that we had to buy insurance on our clothes if we worked for the insurance company. And that our daddies needed to sign that for us and bring it back the next day. Well, we believed them.
Insurance on your clothes?
On our clothes, yes. On our clothes. I mean, we didn't know. 17, we thought, okay, these guys are telling us this is what we got to do. So we took them home. The next day, we both came in, and she looked at me, we looked at each other, and I said, "I didn't get my daddy." She said, "I didn't either." Then the guys came down.
What did your dad say?
He said, "Crazy. Yeah. You're crazy. I'm going to call that guy. You tell me who he is, I'll call him and tell him about insurance on his clothes." So anyway, the guys came down, they were laughing, and it went from there. So at the time, both of us were working together, and when we started seeing each other or dating, that came to the point of one of you has to go, of course. Well, it was me. So then I went to work for the Chamber of Commerce as a secretary for these 2 guys, and had never done secretarial work, had no idea what I was doing, but I just made it up all the way down to whatever I did. I just did it. And so they met Jack, it was his name, and they knew he was a great salesman, so they wanted to hire him at the Chamber. So guess what? I had to leave the Chamber. So that's 2 jobs that I had to move from. So then I decided this friend of mine wanted to open a dress shop and a wig shop and a beauty salon. Now, first of all, I've never worked in a dress shop, a beauty shop, or didn't know a thing about wigs. So we decided to do it. And we did it on Devine Street. Everything happened on Devine Street.
That's wild.
So we did it on Devine Street, and it was called the Casa DL, the House of Diane and Ellen.
Oh, awesome.
I'm telling you, we knew nothing. We did have some professional hairdressers, thank goodness, and a professional wig designer. But we decided to go to New York, try to find a buyer, which you have to have when you're doing stores, because we didn't know how to do it. And we ran into this woman. We called her, and her name was Sonny Senator. Well, Sonny was a character. She was crazy. So she told us she had all kind of, people that she knew, and we'd been having trouble getting into the biggest shows in town. So that particular night, she said Ole Cassini was having a show, and we had tickets. So Ellen and I went, and we went right off of working in the streets, not working the streets, working in the streets, in the garment industry, yes. And we looked horrible. I mean, we just looked plain. We looked horrible, and Sonny Senator's plain and horrible. So we got to the door, and we didn't have tickets. She just told us that. She caused such a scene at the door, and there were so many people, so many famous people there, and Ole Cassini, of course, was fabulous. She caused such a scene, they finally said, get in the door and go all the way to the back, sit back, and don't say another word. They had to stop all this going on.
Who caused the scene?
Sonny Senator.
Oh,
she was saying she did have tickets, and we're getting in, and these are her clients, and so they finally let us in. During the show, I mean, we just going to be really quiet and leave without anybody seeing us because we were that embarrassed. During the show, Ole Cassini came off the stage, walked back to the three of us, and looked at us and said, I just got to know, who are you? What are y'all doing here? And of course, as embarrassed as we were and as young as we were, we said, oh, we have a dress shop in Columbia, South Carolina. And we had never opened it. And we wanted to look at some of your designer clothes. Well, there was no way we could afford those clothes. So he knew right off the bat. But he said, well, I tell you what, I'm having a party at my house tonight. Why don't you two girls come?
Wow.
And Sonny said, am I invited? He said, no, you're not. So that night, and we were staying in this crazy little hotel, and he sent the limo, picked us up. We had now remember, all these women are going to be wearing these designer clothes, and we had on whatever, I don't even remember. Picked us up in his limo. We got to his house. Beautiful, beautiful home. The only people that would speak to us was the kitchen help and the staff because they thought we probably were part of them and not the party.
Right.
So after that, we never went back to New York again. We bought clothes in a different way, and we did stay there several years and did okay. But
really,
that was another career that I knew nothing about that I was doing. In the meantime, Jack and George Nebraska met. Now, my father was in the restaurant equipment business for years, so we knew a lot of restaurant people, and I spent a lot of time in the back of restaurants traveling with my dad. So George Nebraska came to town, and Nebraska's was open at that time. Now, Nebraska's was being run by a guy that George Nebraska had just hired, and he wasn't doing a good job, and asked Jack. We were having Easter dinner with my parents because they were friends of George Nebraska's.
Your parents were friends with George Nebraska's, and you and Jack were there having. Okay.
Right. Now, we were married at this time.
Okay.
We had gotten married at this time, and I was 18 when I got married. So we were at my house, and Jack said, there's no way that I want to. Oh, George asked him, he said, look, I need to get rid of this guy. I want somebody to take over this restaurant. And it was just a takeout. Jack said, I don't want to do that. I've never done that. And finally, he said, well, look, you're off for 2 weeks. Would you like to just try it? And he said, okay. He was on vacation. So he went in there, tried it, and fell in love with it.
Oh, my gosh.
So that was the beginning of Nebraska's. It did really, really well. Now, this whole time, I was still at the dress shop. It did really well, and people started sitting on Coca-Cola crates. They would drink their Cokes or their beer or whatever and eat the pizzas over there. And then Jack said, well, maybe we'll just go ahead and open another side for indoor dining. So he started the construction on that. They painted a mural on the wall with this guy that was really in prison at Fort Jackson, and they'd get him in the daytime, and he'd come to Nebraska's and paint the mural.
Oh, really?
And then they'd take him back. I mean, he was fine. He didn't do anything that bad. Right. It was great.
Yeah.
So they did that, and then we had opening night. Well, opening night, Jack said to me, look, maybe you should come down just in case somebody decides to eat there.
Because it was still takeout.
It was just takeout.
But people drank beers and had pizzas there, and they wanted to hang out.
They hang out. So we opened it with booths.
Uh-huh.
First booths, and decorated with the wine bottles hanging down, the old-timey wine bottles and candles. And he said, maybe somebody will want to sit over there. Why don't you just come and greet them and talk to them? Now, remember, I've never been in the restaurant business ever, and never wanted to be in the restaurant business.
Right.
So I started. That was in 1968, I think. 67, 68. I worked that night. The place packed up, filled up. I knew nothing about the menu. I knew nothing about waiting on tables. But he said, I'm sorry, you got to do it. Just get over there and do what you can. You got to wait on tables. I started waiting on tables. The first table I had were these 4 guys, and they started asking me questions. What kind of sausage do you have? And I said, I don't know, it's sausage. What kind of pepperoni is it? What kind of cheese do you use? I don't know. This is my first night, and I have no idea. It's sausage, it's cheese, it's pepperoni. So they were laughing the whole time, and I guess just having a good time. When they left all their money on the table, which at that time, I scraped it all up and ran outside and tried to give it back to them. I said, y'all left your money on the table. They said, honey, you really are new, aren't you? That's your tip. From then on, I looked under plates, under candles, under anything I could to get my tips. And that's how I started.
Oh, that's awesome.
So then he said I had to stay there. Also that night, the famous Italian dressing for the cheese salad, he said we were going to have salads, and then at the last minute said, we don't have a dressing. You go make a dressing. So I don't know how to make a dressing. I mean, I was that bad and that young and new. So I went back there and I took a basic dressing and added stuff to it, not knowing what I was doing. Put it on the cheese salads that night, and that story, I mean, that speaks for itself. It's
those
just
cheese
huge.
salads, those cheese salads are very symbolic of Nebraska's.
Exactly.
And then I know from Diane's on Assembly Street, and then Diane's on Devine. I mean, we just always had those chopped up mozzarella on top of the iceberg lettuce salad.
Iceberg lettuce, just plain iceberg.
Cold bowls in the cooler with
tomatoes,
the
cucumbers.
with that Italian dressing. It's so taste one right now.
I know, me too. We might have one when we get through.
Exactly.
I got the goodies here.
We can, do it.
We can do it. But then that was Nebraska's. So then that's the first restaurant. The second total of 6, the second one was going to be Sudie's. Now that was a combination of our two daughters, and myself. Diane, Suzanne, and Jennifer. The Jesudi. So for some reason, Jack said, look, I think I want this to be a cave. We're going to do like a cave, like a grotto in Italy or something. He said, so you got to make it a cave. I said, why am I going to make it a cave? So we called Ed Hancock, who was a designer and an architect and a friend, and said, look, we got to make a cave. And he said, I don't know how to make a cave either. And he's the same thing. So he went to the zoo. That's when the zoo first opened, and they had done all of that gunite and made all the zoo out of that same kind of thing. The metal lab.
The Riverbank Zoo.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he knew that was what he wanted it to look like. So he went to school to learn how to do it.
Ed Hancock did?
Ed Hancock.
Wow.
So when he decided he had it, then he would came back, and we started construction. So we would stand inside, and he said, well, where do you want this wood? And we'd point, so I don't know, let's just put one there, and let's just put one there, just whatever we could do. And that's how we built the interior. Then the outside, and there's a newspaper article about this, he did the outside, like a cave too. Mm-hmm. All the newspaper was going to spend that day shooting the gunite into the metal lathing to form the cave. So everybody was there to see it. All the newspapers, all the television, everybody. So they got it all set up and started shooting the metal lathing through the gunite. And I say through the gunite, the holes were too big. It went straight through the gunite and went built up all behind it.
Oh my God.
And he had to go back and tear it all down and start over.
Oh no.
So, but
wow.
One of the most famous stories I think was just Sudie's was the mountain lion. So Ed was doing the bar, and he said, look, let's do this. Let's put a ledge up there, because I said something about I wanted a mountain lion or something in here, and a panther, I think I said to start with. He said, let's make a ledge, and you order that, and we'll put it in here. Just let it kind of hang around and just into here. So I assumed when I called and ordered from a taxidermist, I ordered a mountain lion. He said, a panther, and he said, you can't have that, but you can have a mountain lion. I said, all right, that's fine. I assumed it would come stuffed and
God.
Big and beautiful.
Oh, no.
And I didn't want to tell Jack how much I spent on it, so I didn't. But at the time, I thought it was a lot of money. It was $1,500, but at that time, that was a lot. We didn't have $1,500.
Right.
So the guy called me one night and said, okay, I've got your mountain lion. It's out in the trunk of my car. Come see it. And I said, great. I walked across the street. He opened the trunk, and I just saw this bag laying there. And I said, what is that? He said, well, that's your mountain lion. And I just started crying. It was just a bag of skin and a head.
$1,500 for just a bag of skin.
Just a bag of skin and a head.
That is a lot of money now.
Yeah, I thought I was going to be in a lot of trouble, too.
For a stuffed one, it wouldn't be a lot, but yeah.
So anyway, he explained to me that he had stuffed it the way I wanted it. So that's when Ed said, let's stuff it just kind of hanging out, putting his paw hanging over the ledge, and we're going to wire it behind the bar and make it, if we pull it, we're going to make that tail flip.
Oh, my God.
So that's what we did. And the customers, if you'd sit there and watch them, especially if they had a good bit to drink, they'd act like they didn't see anything and turn their heads. And other people would scream. Or it was just one
awesome.
thing. But it became pretty famous for that. And then one day, these animal activists or whatever came in with their T-shirts on, and they said they were going to confiscate my mountain lion.
Oh, my
But
God.
it didn't have papers or something, as it turned out. He did have papers. He was legal, and we kept him.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that was the second restaurant.
That's killer. Let me ask you, so with Nebraskas and Sudie's now, like the struggles must have been, along the ways. I mean, it's, the everybody's sitting on the Coke crates and they're eating, and you expand into the dining room, and then all of a sudden it's a success. But like, were there hard times in that, or was Nebraska's an instant success, or?
Actually, while the first 2 or 3 years that it was just takeout, the minute we opened the dining room side, it was a success. The minute we opened it, and then so we opened the second dining room and then the third dining room.
Wow.
So we went from me being one server. We hired another girl. She and I did it for a while by ourselves, and then it was, of course, full
So
staff.
you two were the servers for a while, right?
Yeah, a good year or 2 years.
Yeah,
It
oh
was
my
Debbie.
gosh.
Her name was Debbie, and Debbie and I. And at that time, it was just Debbie and I, so we'd start playing around and just messing around. And Jack would come over and start fussing at us, and I would say, yes, sir. I'll go that. Yes, sir, I'll do that. And Debbie said, did you say yes, sir, to your husband? Yeah, I did. But anyway, we did, because, we just had a great time. It was just, the business built up and got to know everybody, and it was fun.
Right.
And then Sudie's, of course, the minute we opened that, it was an immediate success because of everybody knowing Nebraska's.
And the menu at Sudie's, that was like, didn't you kind of like upgrade the Nebraska's thing? You wanted a...
Yeah, Nebraska's was just pizza. It was just a pizzeria. And so then Sudie's was the chicken parm, spaghetti, lasagnas, all the different things like that. Sausage and peppers, and so that's why we upgraded there. At that point, then I moved over there permanently instead of Nebraska's, and just kind of ran the front. And we had quite a good crew in the bar, and I think a lot of it were the high schools.
Oh, yeah.
Just poured in there on Fridays.
Yeah. So many people have Nebraska's and Sudie stories that grew up in Columbia on Friday nights. That's, you mentioned
Friday
those
night,
two
that was a big
places.
night,
And
yeah. So it did fine. It was doing really well.
That's awesome.
Lots of fun stories.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember by the time we got to Assembly Street, and you would always see people And they talk about Nebraskas and Sudie's, and you say, yeah, and then you wouldn't know who they were, and I thought you were just faking it because you wanted to be cool. But I've learned that, you do. You don't know.
They know you because you're the only person standing there.
Yeah.
And then you've got to try to remember their names, and it's not good.
It gets tough.
You got to have somebody standing by you to help you.
Yeah. All right. So the end of Sudie's came, and there was a divorce.
There was a divorce. So at that point, we sold Sudie's and Nebraska's. Jack stayed at Nebraska's until several years ago. He had some guy buy it, about 5 or 6 years ago.
Wow.
Maybe longer.
I think they still have those wine bottles hanging from the ceiling in there, if I'm not mistaken.
They do, and I've always wondered when the next one's going to come down and hit somebody on the head.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
But yeah, because we had the candles in them, the old candles, and fire department ended up stopping that. You couldn't do that anymore. It had the candles.
That's wild. So what did you do after you got divorced and sold Sudie's?
Okay, then of course we had 2 daughters, and they were going to college. One went to Furman, one went to the College of Charleston, and so I was not working at the time, but knew I needed to go to work and get some extra money.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what I was going to do because all the restaurants is all I've done at this point. Mm-hmm. Well, I was at a party one night, and a friend of mine was standing there, and he won't mind me saying his name because he loves it. It was Johnny Yates, who owns Builder Specialties, which was carpet and wallpaper. So I was standing there talking to him, and I said, Johnny, I need a job. He said, well, I can't do anything about that. It's a warehouse. You can't work in that warehouse where we cut carpet and do wallpaper. And I said, yeah, but I need a job. And he said, well, I can't pay you much of anything. And I said, well, I can't make much of anything. I'm not supposed to. He said, well, we'll see.
It might work.
It might work. He said, okay, well, we'll see. So show up. So the next morning I showed up. I had no idea, again, what I was doing. Mm-hmm. Again. But, I'd gotten to the point now, I'm so used to not knowing what I was doing. I just jump in there and
winging it.
Do it, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was nothing but carpet, a big warehouse, and then they had a bunch of guys in there, so you can imagine that everything was everywhere. They had a wallpaper room, and I said, well, I'm just going to fix this up. Mm-hmm. So I started straightening things up and organizing it, fixing it. And
for his warehouse?
Not the warehouse. They wouldn't let me.
Okay, yeah.
No, there was
for the
one
office.
little room with the
right.
with the wallpaper.
Okay.
So then people would come in and they'd want to buy wallpaper, and I'd show them, the ladies coming in. And then one day I started thinking, I need to do something more than this. So I had noticed some of the builders coming in with color boards, which designers do to show all the different items that the carpet, wallpaper, paint colors, and all that, and do color boards for them to show them. So I thought, well, I need to learn how to do this. So every afternoon, usually for a while, I would take my lunch hour and I would go to one of the office supply places that I knew had designers, and I knew that they were doing. You could see them doing the color boards. So I was acting like I was just shopping, and I was trying to learn from them what they did and how they did it. So I finally did. I said, okay, I think I can do this. Went back to Builders, and one day this guy walked in, and Johnny was not there. So I greeted him myself, and he said, I want my entire building redone. I said, sure, fine, I'd be glad to help you. Again, I don't know what I'm doing. But I said, okay, I'm going to do it. This is it. So he said, let's go make an appointment. We'll go look at it. And Johnny came in that afternoon. I told him, he said, you did what? You cannot do this. You don't know how to do it. You can't do it. So,
oh my God.
So you're going to go with me. So we went over there together, came back. I did
what were you thinking?
Board.
Like, what is that?
I don't think.
I mean, right. Well, that helps. Is that, do you think that's is that it?
Yeah. If I stopped to think about what I was doing, I would never do it.
Like, what if you wrote out a plan? That would just ruin everything, wouldn't it?
That. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't follow a plan. I won't sit still. I can't read my own directions. So no, I mean I can't. If I don't just go for it, I don't think through
right.
it.
I mean it's so far in so many things that we've heard about already, and it's amazing. And the best was yet to come with that attitude too.
Oh yes.
So anyway, I love this story so go ahead with.
All right. So
all of a
anyway,
sudden,
the guy came. I did the color board. He loved it, bought it, and Johnny said, "Oh gosh." So then from there, I did a good many more. And then again, here comes Ed Hancock, the architect that helped us on Sudie's.
The Mountain Lion architect.
Mountain Lion. So
yes.
got back into my life, and they needed to do a bank on Main Street. So he asked me if I would help him. So sure. So we did a bank on Main Street. And their historic foundation met with us, and they said, "You have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this," and go and do it. Well, I just ignored everything they said. I don't have to do that. I don't like those colors. And went ahead with it and presented it, and they took it, and Ed won a lot of awards on that bank.
Really?
He really did. It was great.
That's
so
awesome.
That was Builder Specialties.
So what was next, or what?
Next is the third restaurant, the Loft.
Okay.
So people in Columbia that are my age or a little bit older, they're going to remember the Loft because it was.
Oh, I remember the Loft. It was here in college. I was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, in my college years.
Just
yeah.
the greatest place to go.
Yeah. It was
so anyway, Johnny Stanley, who owned the Loft at the time, he said, "I'm tired of it. I want to lease it out." He knew my brother, and said, "Why don't you and Diane take the Loft and run it?" Well, that was nighttime. Of course, I was working daytime for Johnny. So we really thought about it because my brother also, when he was younger, helped me at Nebraska's and Sudie's. So
I think everybody in Columbia probably worked at Nebraska's
they did,
and Sudie's.
Yeah.
Oh, and
I raised
Diane's
a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly.
Including you.
Right.
So anyway, we took over the Loft. And it was a hopping place. It was mostly a bar, some food, but Andy...
Oysters, I remember.
Yeah,
oyster night
bar.
Was on Thursday or something like that.
Yeah, it was an oyster bar mostly.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that was just the place to be. And so, did that. So I was working 2 jobs.
So you would work builders, and then Andy, you would take, what was the...
Andy was at the university getting his doctorate in psychology. And so he would meet me in the afternoon. I'd give him the money. I don't know why we did it this way, but we did. I'd give him the money from the night before. He'd do all the deposits because I was working at Builders. And then he'd reset the registers. I'd go by there at 3:30 when I got off from work. He'd walk outside, meet me at the car, hand me the registers and the money, and talk about what we had to do for that day. And that was it. So I'd go on up there and stay till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. But at that time, if it wasn't that bad working 2 of them because if you're that young, you can do both. And I enjoyed both jobs. So I stayed with that for a while until one day Mr. Chase, who owned Builder Specialties, asked me, he said, "Diane, would you like to get back in the restaurant business on your own?" And I said, "Well, sure." And he was the actual owner of Builder Specialties. And I said, "Of course, but I don't have any money." He said, "Well, I'll back you if you go in this location. And it's on Assembly Street." And I said, "Where?" And as it turned out, it was in Olympia, next to a pool hall, a laundromat, and a sewer.
Yeah,
on the corner.
it was.
And I said, "Mr. Chase, I'm not doing that. I will not. We can put it somewhere else, but I will not put it next to all those things." He said, "Well, that's my building. I own it. You either go there or you don't go anywhere." Again, I don't stop and think.
Right.
I just do.
Yeah.
And so
No
I said,
plan.
"Well, no plan." I said, "Okay, we'll do that." So I ended up calling some of the employees that were at Sudie's for years and that weren't at Nebraska. So I went taking them from there and called them and brought them all back. And we turned around and opened the original Diane's on Assembly Street.
Yeah.
We were open for lunch, open for dinner, and that's when I met you.
Right. I can remember the day I met you, and I came in for an application. I had worked, I think, barback or something, maybe at Goat Feathers one school year, and then was coming here they were still building the Assembly Street location.
Right. Okay.
And I remember you had on the black shirt with the pink thing, which I ended up using to imitate you in one of my greatest performances, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I just remember that day, excuse me, so clearly. It's so wild to remember that. So anyway.
John was my biggest critic. Every time I would...
Still am.
Still am, yeah. Every time I have to look at him to see if I'm okay because he's going to tell me if I'm not real quick.
Right.
But that's some of the best times we've ever had. We made no money. I mean, it was terrible.
That was great because that was lunchtime, and I would drive checks. That's when people would pay checks, for food or whatever, and I would have to run those up to get them in the bank by 2:00.
By 2:00. Yeah. So we nothing would bounce our regular checks that we would send.
Or tell the bank lady call the next morning, she's not in yet. She's not in yet.
I mean, that was hysterical that we had to do all that.
Yes.
It did.
Yeah.
And then every time that, or John brought this up to me, he said, every time you needed money, you'd always throw a party.
Yeah.
So you could get a lot of customers in there. So what I did this time was we needed some money, so I thought we'd just pay off the banknote. Well, we did not pay off the banknote. That was just a fun thing to get everybody to celebrate and come spend some more money.
Yeah.
But we did a big, huge cardboard check in amount of something, just a fake number, and signed paid off and hung it on the wall.
Yeah.
Well, guess who came in for lunch the next day with it hanging there? Is the woman from the bank.
Yeah, she knew better.
She knew better. She said, "Oh, what is that all about?" And I said, "Oh, one of our customers paid off the bank loan." She said, "Well, that's nice." And I thought, "Oh, no, this could not have happened." But it did.
That's hilarious.
So that, and then what John's talking about, was this Halloween?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
The black sweater I had, everybody knew me from this, and a hot pink suede or velvet stripe running through it, and some black leather pants.
Uh-huh.
Well, that was my favorite outfit then.
Uh-huh.
Well, I started looking.
It was one of 3 outfits then.
Yeah,
it was the very beginning days.
I didn't have much.
Yeah.
I had very little of anything then, but you're right. 1 of 3. So I started looking for the sweater to wear one, and I couldn't find it. And I got so mad. I went to the dry cleaners, and I accused them of losing it. They were going to have to replace it, and then I couldn't find my leather pants either. And I thought, what is going on? So anyway, I didn't think any more about it. Walked into the restaurant one night, and I hear John singing and saying this, or whatever you were doing then, just talking.
Well, Ross Holmes was playing at this time, and he said everybody was there, the place was packed, and we had one of the servers there snuck into your house and got the outfit. And you had even called Ed Robinson Cleaners and complained that they lost your outfit and everything. But it was my costume for the event. And I went over to your good friend's house, and she did my hair. I had this horrible wig, and she put on my makeup and all that. And you always wore fake fingernails that were glued on. And this time but they were always missing. They were always missing 2 or 3.
Always missing 2 or 3.
So we put on about 7 fingernails for me, and Ross said, everybody, the place was packed, and Ross had a special announcement. He said, "Y'all think that the real Diane has been here, but that's not her over there, and you didn't know what was going on." But I think everybody else in the place did.
They did.
Well, the real Diane come out, and I came out, and I did the, "Hey, how you doing?" And then turn around and, "Who is that? Who is that?" And then got up and just imitated you and walked with a limp and had the fingernails and made sure everyone knew that I was missing them.
Martini in your hand,
yeah,
which I usually did.
Yeah.
Martini in my hand. I mean, you did great.
It was awesome.
It
was my best performance ever.
It really was. It was. And whatever poem, however y'all made that.
Ross,
that
was crazy. That was crazy because Ross always played this one song on Wednesdays that we were rather tired of hearing by this point. And someone in the kitchen wrote a song to go with it that involved regulars, but then it also talked about Diane cussing and everything. and that was wild when we were looking through things a couple months ago that you still have that. And because we gave it to you framed that year, and everybody that worked there signed the back of it, and to be able to hold that again after, what was that, 1990? I think it was dated.
89.
It was dated. Well, that thing was dated Christmas in 90. We opened it in 89.
89.
But, so, all these years later to see that again and just remember that night like it was yesterday because it was so much fun.
That was probably the funniest thing. I mean, for me to stand there and watch you.
Yeah.
Limping when I still limped. Because of horseback riding accident or whatever, I was still limping.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah, we didn't know how we were ever going to top that Halloween. What were we going to do? So
But we did.
we did.
We topped it.
Yeah.
I think it was your idea too, or I don't know how we came up with it.
I don't think I thought of that.
Well, this was the Elizabeth Taylor wedding when she married Fortinsky. What was his name?
Larry Fortinsky,
Fortinsky.
which, by the way, everyone always said Diane looked like Elizabeth Taylor. I mean, the pictures of you and Elizabeth Taylor when y'all were like 18, each of you 18. Not that you're the same age as she would have been now, but
Close, I think. Now.
I mean, yeah, well, but if she were alive, she'd be much older. But it's unreal how much y'all looked alike. You know, I always thought that, and everybody thought it. And but anyway, so go ahead.
So we decided, and there was another Halloween,
Mm-hmm.
that we were going to do the wedding, Elizabeth Taylor's wedding. Well, of course, Michael Jackson was the number one star of the whole thing. Well, guess who was Michael Jackson?
Yours truly, yes.
And just looked, I mean, that costume you put on,
Yeah.
you looked just like him.
Uh-huh.
So then another customer was Fortinsky.
Uh-huh.
And then a bunch of girls and I went to Kmart or somewhere to get some curtains, yellow curtains, because her wedding dress was yellow,
Yes.
to make a wedding dress.
Uh-huh.
And the lady in wherever we were said, well, how many yards do you need and how many windows do you have? And I said, no, I'm going to make my wedding dress out of this. And she just bought it. We went back and Ross was played again, and we did that wedding, and we had the mother of the bride there. We had they were the Vestal Virgins, which were the bridesmaids. We had Michael Jackson standing up there with me and Fortinsky, and we had to do our wedding vows. And one of them was that if he would quit parking his car in our driveway, I would I can't remember what else we did.
Yeah.
It was great.
It was hilarious.
Banging their heads on the tables and laughing
Yeah.
and crying at this whole thing.
Yeah. I remember someone had a video recorder. There were no cell phones in to record, but we were going to send it into America's Home Videos or Funniest Videos, and there was no way that you could even understand it because people were either screaming, cussing, or banging the table so loud you couldn't understand a word going on.
You couldn't understand anything we said.
But that was crazy.
Oh, but then we took a picture of
Yes.
the original People magazine that had Elizabeth Taylor, Michael Jackson, Fortinsky on it, and we duplicated it exactly. We took a picture and we got it in a frame with people across. It is great. I mean, John, I've never seen you looked exactly like Michael Jackson.
Yeah, my friend who did my makeup, she drew the cleft chin in, and she did a good job. Yeah,
you were great, and the dancing and the singing.
Yeah, it was hilarious.
So that's why we didn't make any money. We were constantly
we were always having fun.
Playing.
And so much fun there. And I remember, there were a few other things that people always thought that I was your son. That was when our age difference looked like mother son, and now they think that you're my wife because I've aged and you haven't. So I would always tell customers, they would say, "Are you Diane's son?" And I would say, "Yes." And if you know who my father is, please tell us. And that was always a
But then when you left and you did, all of us, we got T-shirts that say, "Can you tell me who my father is?" We all wore those T-shirts on your last day.
It said, "I'm John's father."
I'm John's father.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's
I'm
right.
John's father.
So that was really something special. That's a great memory too.
Yeah.
That enough. There were so many people that knew that inside joke.
Oh yeah, so that
there was quite a family there with the customers and the staff.
The staff, it really was very close.
So then I left, and before I left though, before we go there, the intention and one of the reasons I brought up Sudie's and being an upgrade from Nebraska is you were always wanting to upgrade, always wanting to do better, and of course there was never a plan to do it, just always wanted to do it. And your favorite thing was to go away. The one or two times that you would get out of town on the weekend or something, and you would come back with menus from a place, and that was the menu we were going to go with, and that was going to be the change and everything. And then one weekend you even brought back a chef from a place.
Yes, I did, and I'm sorry that you remember that.
Yeah.
Because I was eating at a restaurant one night, and it was in, I don't know where, Beaufort, I think.
Beaufort.
And decided this chef was great, so I offered him a job. And he showed up. I didn't think, I was thinking that I was just talking that night and having a good time. Well, he showed up. He showed up, and went straight back to the kitchen when I didn't know anything about it. And that's when he had already called somebody and ordered this giant fish.
Yeah.
Remember, no, we didn't order giant or big anything, so we just ordered one of this and one of this.
Yeah.
So in comes this giant fish, and I don't even know what it was. He was going to make some fabulous thing, and he's back there talking to the people. And I said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I didn't." The story went on and on. I said, "No, you need to leave here. This is not going to work. I'm sorry about all this." And he wouldn't leave. Every day he'd come back in. He'd sit at the bar. He'd be in there, and we'd say, "You got to go." So one day I told John, I said, "John, you take this guy to the bus stop.
The bus station.
Here's some money, and you put him on that bus, and you do not come back here until you see him drive off in that bus."
Yeah, and I did.
And you did.
I took this crazy guy, he was nuts, and took him to the bus and watched him roll out of town.
I don't know what we did with that fish.
Yeah.
I can't remember that, but yeah, John had to put him in. I said, "Don't you come back here till you get that guy on that bus."
That was hilarious. You would think that would teach you to not bring menus back and want to change the whole venue on a dime, but that never worked.
Me anything.
No.
I just stepped right out there again and get in more trouble.
keep going.
Keep going.
And you had your next employee that ended up making a huge change and dent in things.
Okay. This guy walked in. We were looking for a salad maker. And so he walked in one day and said he wanted to interview for that job. Well, then, of course, now this salary is entirely different. Then that was a $5 an hour job. Mm-hmm. And so I talked to him, and I didn't call references on salad maker as a dishwasher. I mean, I just didn't. So I said, "Well, sure, you want to go ahead and start?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll start." Well, he was an Italian from New York. His name was Billy Prato, or Prato.
Yeah.
If you want to say that too. But anyway, so he went back in the kitchen and he started making salads, and he started taking over the kitchen, and he started preparing all these dishes, doing all this stuff. And I called him back in the office after about 2 weeks, and I said, "All right, this is not, who are you really? You are not a $5 an hour salad maker." Mm-hmm. He said, "Nope, I'm not. I'm an executive chef, trained executive chef from the Culinary Institute of America, and I'm just passing through picking up chump change." He said, "The woman that owned Araya, that owned a restaurant in Florida, closed hers, and I'm just moving on to New York. I came through Columbia to see some friends, and I thought I'd just get some money before I left for New York." I said, "Will you stay and help me?" Because he was I could tell he was unbelievable. He said, "Why would you think I'd stay in Columbia?" No, I'm not going to do that. So I kept asking him every day, "Would you please stay? Would you put whatever?" Begging, asking, pleading. And finally one day he said, "All right, I'll make a deal with you. Will you let me do anything I want to with that menu?" And I said, "I don't care what you do with it. As long as you keep me out of that, I don't have to be in that kitchen anymore. You can do whatever you want." So he did. He came up with the new menu, and I don't think it was, 6 weeks maybe? The place, you could not get in that restaurant, into Diane's. Right. People were eating off a cigarette machine. I mean, they were just, and we were open day and night at this time, so it was just busy as it could possibly be. And Billy he just kept doing it. He was great.
That, let's talk about the hours real quick, because this just blows my mind. It was Monday through Thursday from 11 to 10.
Was it 11?
Oh, no, 11 to 11.
11 to 11.
Monday through Thursday, 11 to 11. And Friday through Saturday, 11 to
12.
11 to 12. Yeah, which is just, those are some insane hours.
Oh, yeah.
That was crazy.
I remember, we didn't talk about this, but I remember one day I was so tired that I sat down in a booth and I told the girls, the servers, I said, "Now, I know I'm going to fall asleep. I'm that tired." I said, "But I'm just going to sit right here and please make sure that y'all come get me before we open the doors."
Because you would take the break in between lunch and dinner.
Yeah, because I wouldn't leave, but I'd always stay there. I would never leave. I just stayed there. But that day I was particularly tired. So, of course, I fell asleep. And I woke up to this guy saying, "Lady." And he was screaming at me. He'd had a bunch to drink. He said, "Try some of this. You'll feel better." And he handed me his beer. But at the same time. I mean, I just panicked, and then I looked around, and we were open, and people were all over the place. And they never came and woke me up.
Oh my God!
I thought I would just never forgive them for that.
Choke them. Yeah,
That's lady.
Hilarious.
You drink some of this, you'll feel better.
That's awesome.
He thought I was passed out.
Oh my God, that's hysterical.
I know it. So then,
the cure. So anyway, so people were eating off the cigarette machines, which what a time stamp that is. That there were cigarette machines in there. There was cigarette machines and a jukebox and all that
the whole
stuff.
thing, like the old timey stuff. It was a turquoise and black and white tile and
mauve.
That's
mauve
right. Mauve
booths,
booths.
chairs. Yes, I remember. So and then sales, like they went through the roof. They tripled in no time, didn't they?
It was like crazy.
Yeah.
Within weeks or months, I don't even want to say months, only 6 weeks at the most, just went crazy in there. Yeah. So when Billy first came, because he was used to working with a big restaurant, he was ordering one day and he said, I'm going to order a case of mayonnaise and I'm going to order a case of, I said, no, you're not. He said, what do you mean? I said, you can order one jar of mayonnaise, one mustard. He said, no. If I'm going to work for you, we're not ordering one of a kind. I said, well, that's what we do until we know what we need, because we don't.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Well, those days are long gone.
But
he took over, and then I just
That's so wild. That's so wild. He's if you know Billy, he's such a Yankee, and you're such a Southerner, and but it worked.
What an opposite! Yeah,
it worked real well. So then, Devine Street happened.
Yeah. The location of Diane's on Devine went for sale. I think it was Prados Steakhouse that owned it at that time.
Yep.
And we were growing so fast that we knew that we had to expand, or we would be crazy not to. Mm-hmm. So I went to Mr. Chase, since he was, part of the business, and said, this is what we need to do. He said, nope, we're not doing it. And I said, Mr. Chase, this would be a great location for this restaurant. He said, no, we're not doing it. So that was a battle that we had to face with that, and had to talk to attorneys and everything else. So that's another hurdle that had to step over. And we finally said, okay, that's what we're doing. I'm going to Devine Street.
Wow.
So
that's not an easy time.
That wasn't easy. That was really bad.
What was that like? Like, because you were around him and.
Well, yeah, he wouldn't come in, but his son would come in. And I think his son really wanted to do it, but I don't think Mr. Chase did. So there were a lot of lawsuits threatened and all kinds of things, but we worked it all out, and I said, well, I'm going. Next time you do something, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go ahead and
what did your business plan say?
Restaurant.
Yeah. Did you have a business plan for this 5,000 square foot building up on Devine Street?
No. Oh, you think I did?
No, it just works, doesn't it?
No, I just knew. I really did. We just go down there and fix it up. Just a little bit.
These are other habits from you I picked up.
Yeah. I think you are my son.
Yeah.
So that location became available, and we started talking about it, and somebody said, a friend said, what you call it, Diane's on Devine? And I said, well, boy, that's another Devine Street.
Yeah.
Insurance company, the dress shop, and now the restaurant.
Wow.
On Devine.
That's so wild.
Decided to go ahead and do it, so we were getting some investors at that time. Well, before that, I had to go to the bank. And I was going to the banks because people do not like to lend restaurants money.
Right.
1 out of 10 failed in the first year, and that's true. And they sure don't like females. Back then, in 1995, that'd be the last person they want to lend to. So I remember going to one of the big banks in town, and I had a meeting with one of the commercial lenders. And the guy, was terrible, but it taught me a lesson too. The guy went in to tell him I was here, but they didn't cut the intercom off on their phone, or whatever it was at that time. And I overheard him saying, well, what does she want? He said, she wants to open a restaurant on Devine Street. He said, I'm not dealing with her. I'm not having, I don't want to talk to her. And just cut, that was it. So I'm sorry he's not available. Maybe, come back. But I heard him. I said, I'm going to come back.
Yeah.
Well, as it turned out, she did. We started construction. Of course, the small changes that we thought we'd make turned into very big changes in design.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, it was quite a difference in what we turned it into. And then I was leaving her office one day, and I realized I was $50,000 short of being able to close. I was walking down the street, tears just pouring down. From not stress, but from frustration.
Right.
I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I go back to, I think I went back to Diane's that day, and this friend was in there. He was in there talking and looking around. And I told him, he said, what do you need? And I said, $50,000. He said, okay, I'll give you a check. And I said, what? He said, I'll give you a check. And I said, well, do you want a percentage? Do you want what do you want? He said, I don't want anything. I want you to get this restaurant open. He said, but what I do want is if one day I turn to you and say, I need it back now, I want it, you give it to me then. And I said, okay. So, what else you gonna say?
I'll figure that out that day.
I'll figure that out when that comes.
Yeah.
When the time comes. Well, a couple of years later, he told me he wanted to help somebody else and wanted the check, and thank goodness at that time we were doing really well, so I gave him his check back.
Yeah.
So that's how that happened, but nothing is ever easy as it seems. You just fight, and then hope you know what you're doing.
And that's a trick I learned from you too. I think Ula would say it's my second best quality next to the customer service that I learned is that because, what's also going on at this time is you're working lunch and dinner and dealing with the public, and you've got all this, am I going to go to this Devine Street? Am I not? Am I going to get sued by my current partner?
Right.
Am I not? And having all that going on, but nobody ever having a clue that you had the weight of the world on your shoulders.
No, they wouldn't.
And
know.
that's, and I learned that is the things, I learned that from you is the things could be falling down in the back in the office and or the kitchen or both of them at the same time. But when you go out on that floor and you deal with the public, it's all smiles and life is great and there's nothing to worry about. And people are going, you should expand, and you're like, well, I'm trying.
Why don't you
should mention that.
Why don't you franchise?
Exactly. Yeah. And but anyway, that's quite a talent.
Well, I think it's the same thing you do. I mean, you're out on that floor, and everybody loves you, and it just makes people want to come.
Yeah.
And that's what you got to do.
Exactly. Act like nothing is wrong.
Nothing is wrong.
Everything is fine. Okay. So Devine Street, and what an undertaking that was. 5,000 square feet.
5,000 square feet. We sat 200 people.
Wow. And how big was Assembly? Do you remember?
No, we didn't see, but
I want to say
60, 70 people.
Yeah, it seemed like that. Much, 60 or 70. It was not much.
No, it wasn't much at all.
Yeah.
So when we hit that 200, I mean, of course, I didn't realize. I didn't think, that's a lot of people to do that. So we went ahead and opened. I'm trying to remember. Well, we opened that in '95. And there were all kind of hurdles with that. I mean, you didn't have enough parking. We had to go get permission for this. We had to get valets. It was just on and on and on. But, we finally got it open.
You tried brunch and you tried lunch and all kinds of good stuff.
We did it all, because we'd say, okay, we did it all. Yeah, we'll do brunch and lunch and dinner. So finally, then at certain points you figure out, wait a minute. This is not doing... If you find something very quick, you need to get rid of it.
Yeah.
If brunch wasn't doing what we needed to do, get rid of it.
Yeah.
Put all your efforts into what is making the money or which is helping the restaurant, and that would be nighttime.
Right.
So that's what we ended up doing, basically just staying at night. And then we opened and leased the place next door for a while, because that was when the pharmaceuticals were doing so many parties.
Yeah.
And we needed bigger space for 90 to 100 people. And we leased that and opened that one for lunch. And that was smaller, and so we could do that. So we opened lunch over there and then did it for private parties. And then we had the dining at night at Diane's, since it was smaller.
Right. And you had those two going and Prados.
Yeah, because we did Diane's and Prados for 12 years together.
Yeah. So tell us about Prados, because we haven't discussed that either. That was quite the undertaking. It's so wild that, can you imagine that you had all this going on, and now it's like, wait, what's that going on at the same time? Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
I didn't know this. Yeah. So Billy, again, we did really well, and well, I will say we hit a snag in 2008. Mm-hmm. That's when the economy went down, and that was a mess. And then the banker did say, because people need to know you can come into some bad times and you got to figure out how to do them. And she said, you got a choice. You can stay here, I can loan you some more money. Stay here, but do you want to try to make it, or do you want to close? Well, we went ahead and said, no, I'm not giving up. We're going to try to make it.
Right.
But as it turned out, when the pharmaceuticals stopped doing all their parties and they stopped doing either working the restaurants like they did, the next door, we didn't really need anymore. And we had, this time, had opened to Prados. So we were working that one really hard. So Billy and I would work at the Prados in the daytime. We'd both leave about 3:30 or 4, change clothes, and work Diane's till midnight or 1 o'clock.
And of course, the Prados is DI for Diane and Prado for Billy Prado.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but back to Diane's and that $5 an hour salad prep person, that went way a long time ago.
Yeah.
So then this time he wanted to open a New York style deli. And I said, okay, if we find the right location, we'll do it together. So that's how we got the Pickens Street. I kept watching it, and you could tell that they were getting ready to close. Miss Flo was the greatest person in the whole world. She and her son owned it. And she was there every day, and I'd go by, and you could tell they were going to close. And I thought, well, if they do, this is going to be our location.
The Purple Cow. Yep.
It was a Purple Cow. So we decided to go ahead with the product.
So you found the Purple Cow building with Miss Flo.
Right. And so we started doing, again, Ed Hancock helped design that building.
Really?
Too. Yeah,
oh, wow.
Because we had to redo it completely. And Miss Flo, I think the greatest story from the whole Prados, one of them, is Miss Flo. She was wonderful. She did a lot of the things there, and she was getting ready to leave that day when we took over. And she was standing up front, and I was telling her goodbye. And she had a look on her face that I knew what she was thinking. I said, Miss Flo, you don't want to leave here, do you? And she said, no, I don't. And I said, well, do you want to stay here and work with us? She said, yes, I do. And I said, all right, get right back in that kitchen, put your apron on, and let's go.
Good.
She stayed with us, I guess, 12 years. Yeah. Before she died.
Yeah, she was such a sweet lady.
She was sweet and got that kitchen under control. Those guys didn't say anything to her. They were like her grandmother. So she was great. She's
awesome. And because it was the Purple Cow, the sign in the back.
Oh, in the office, we still left the sign up because they had just put it up there. Don't forget to bring in the cow.
Yeah.
Because if any of y'all remember, there would be a purple cow outside, or wouldn't we? And the fraternity would steal it all the time as part of the initiation. And it would be in the newspaper, please bring the cow back, and they always did.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
But, we closed Diane's because we were doing both, and Prados was taking off. So we said, okay, maybe age had a little bit to do with closing one of them.
Well, I think, too, that, the smaller restaurants were coming in, and the farm-to-table motif and all that.
Yeah.
But, and just to go back to Diane's real quick, like even knowing, what I've really realized from running Crave is what a small place Crave is, but you had a 5,000 square foot place, and you knew what was going on at every table. Like it was, you had quite the knack for that. And some of them would be on the porch outside, and you'd be like, John, that lady needs tea, and I'm like, I just went and refilled their tea, and they'd be empty, and you knew it there in the private dining room in the back. You quite a gift.
Well, thank you
for knowing that.
Yeah, I just think you keep walking and walking and walking, and of course nobody has. I think an article was written one time about no woman stands alone, so no man stands alone, and you don't. I mean, the crew that I had helping, the people. I mean, you're one of them. You be one of them. Right. Chef Billy and the other people that were there. Yeah. Just really together, we all made it work. Yeah. And that's what it takes. We had some great people surrounding me.
Yeah, strong team, and a lot of fun there as well. Okay, so let's go back to Prados. That took off. like pretty. I mean, that didn't take long to take
It
off.
didn't take long at all. It was really quick. So then we opened. We were doing fine. Everything's going great, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
So at that point, I thought, what are we going to do? How do we do this? Because I had such a great crew there, and so that I didn't want to lose. So we had to close. We finally waited till the last minute. And I'll never forget, I was sitting at a table watching the television, trying to figure out what everybody's doing. And the servers, the 4 servers that are still there, and still
Have been there for a long time.
Oh yeah, 13 years. They were all with me for so long. They walked over to me and said, "You got to close, Diane. You can't do it. We'll figure it out." I'll never forget them saying that to me. They said, "We will do whatever it takes." And they did. I mean, they stayed there, even though we were closed, and we cleaned and painted and scrubbed. And for the times that we were closed, and those 4 girls would come in, because that was when the money was made available to pay your employees. So we make sure that they were all taken care of. And then when we were able to open back up, you could open up if you had an outside dining. Well, we didn't have outside dining.
Yeah.
We had outside dining that next day.
Right. Yeah.
I took all the tables out of the patio, the enclosed patio room outside, and put them outside, and said, "Bob, my husband, go find 13 matching umbrellas and get back here with them today."
Yeah.
So he did. So then all of a sudden we had an outside dining, and then it took a while, but it started coming back. Everything was coming back. Then, just as far as the end, I don't know how to say. The chef, and he perfectly fine with me saying this, Billy, who we've been together 30 years, and chef and owner, and then chef and partner. And so it's real hard, difficult. His health became pretty bad, so he knew that he couldn't do it anymore, and did I want to continue to do it without his help? And I said, actually, I had to think about it for a long time. So we tried to apply for chefs, managers, all kinds of things. All kinds of things. People to help in the kitchen so that maybe I could stay and run it. And you couldn't get any help now. You can't find people. They said they're coming in. They won't come in.
Yeah, that's awful.
So it's awful. So in the meantime, these guys called from Atlanta and made us an offer. Well, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. But probably had to do the smartest thing, because even now it's just tough to keep them running.
Right. Yeah.
So we made the decision we would go ahead and close.
There you go.
Sell.
Yeah. What was that like?
Awful.
Yeah.
Awful.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like Miss Flo walking out that day.
Right.
I was standing out there front door. It just reminded me of exactly how she felt. But they didn't ask me to come back in. I don't know what happened. I think they were kind of glad to say bye.
Yeah.
I had to work with 30 days according to the contract. Had to be there 30 days before they took over, and I think that was a very happy day for them.
Right.
Because I couldn't keep my mouth shut.
No.
But anyway.
Do you miss it?
I miss it a lot. When you do restaurants, I guess for 60 years now, that's 6 restaurants. And I've been doing it for 60 years. It's kind of hard just to step away.
To walk away, yeah.
And you won't give me a job. You tell everybody that I'd fall down. And
Yeah, listen, we didn't go into all your falls that you've had at work. And
I constantly fall down.
Yeah, no, we're not doing that. Thank goodness doctors eat at Prados a lot, and Diane's and everything.
Right, because they can always save me.
Yeah. Something we didn't talk about that I think is so interesting is that I tried to get Oprah to have y'all on.
You did. You wrote. I've still got the letter that you wrote.
Did you? Do you really?
Yeah,
I wrote Oprah about probably 8 or 9 years ago at this point, and telling her, because I'm so impressed with you. You have like 3 or 4 close friends that grew up in Columbia, South Carolina. And what year did y'all graduate high school?
61.
61. Yeah. So I grew up in the 50s, and all became very successful business women. And, that just, it's really surprising when Leave It to Beaver was on at the same time, and you're supposed to be these housewives, and
That's
that
true.
you and Mimi Maddock had, she had her
Star
newspaper
reporter, yeah.
and was quite the editor for that. And then what's Ducky's real name?
Betsy Porter.
Betsy Porter
I
had
call her Stucky.
had
she
her
ended up owning her insurance
owning
company.
her
She went
insurance
through
company.
A real story too.
Yeah, and it's really successful
Right.
business ladies that went to the top of their game
We were
in their
very,
field. What
there
where's
were
that
very
from?
few. I mean, there were, because then everybody was either going to college or they were home. Staying home.
Well, what is that? What do you think that was at the water in Columbia at the time?
Yeah, I'd like to know what it is.
Yeah.
I think all of us were the same. Or still, I mean, because Mimi, one of our best friends, she passed away a couple of years ago. But the three of us became very, very good friends, and worked with each other as far as we used our insurance, we used our newspaper, and they came out to eat and things like that. So I don't know the answer.
Yeah,
I just know that I love working, and I love the business I ended up being in, which certainly didn't start out to be in that. I had no idea, but I ended up loving it.
Yeah.
And so I was just driven.
Yeah, and they were too. But
They were too.
y'all really bucked the trend of female business people, which is great. So what do you miss the most about the restaurant?
People, customers. I mean, I've gotten to know so many of them, and I miss the people and some of the staff that's been with me for 13 years, 14, 15 years. I mean, you're not with somebody every day of your life, but you don't miss them.
Right. Yeah.
So, but missing the people and the crowds I like the challenge of starting a day off, and how busy it's going to be and how tough it's going to be, and I like the challenge of going, okay, we can do this, and do it. As the lines are running into Prados, when the lines would start out of the door, and they would be lines all the way to the back of the building, which was great. We were really blessed with all that kind of business,
right?
And we'd have to figure out how we're going to do this,
and get it
we're
done.
going to do it and get it done,
and survive, and laugh about it.
But
a lot of the way.
That's when I'm at my best. My adrenaline starts flowing, and then I'm ready.
You forget how much the leg hurts.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think is your strongest professional characteristic? Like what?
I think kind of like what you were talking about, the
Customer service.
customer service.
Yeah.
I think that's so important.
It is.
I mean, obviously it is.
Uh-huh.
And I watch you, and you know I do. I sit there and watch you all the time because since I grew you up, I trained you, and you're fantastic. I mean, certain people just know how to do that,
Right.
That's what attracts everybody.
Yes. What is your weakest quality?
Probably delegating, because when I ask someone to do something, then I want it now. I want it done right this minute.
Yes, I remember.
And when they even, if they even hesitate a little bit, a little temper comes out, and I just go do it myself. And they probably don't care. They're probably glad I did it.
Yeah, they're glad. Oh, look,
I'll show
she's
you.
doing it. Yeah.
I'm gonna go do this myself.
It's just them. They're
But
like,
that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
Because I try, but then I don't give them a chance.
Exactly.
I do it myself.
Exactly. Now, if someone came to you to open a restaurant, what are 3 things you would tell them? You can think of that many. Don't run and.
Don't do it, don't do it, and don't do it.
Yeah.
Stay away.
Don't make a plan.
Don't have a plan. If you like cooking, you just stay in your own house and cook.
Yeah.
Because you don't know the trouble restaurants are. I'm sorry, but they are.
Yeah.
They're tough.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It's just not a big profit margin.
No, it never has been. I mean, and you can't, if you raise your prices enough, especially now. I mean, who can afford, you can't raise them enough. And then you can't get product now. I know it. I'm sure you're going through all of that.
Yeah.
That's tough. You can't get help. And if you had hired me, you've had somebody good, but you won't. So now I don't know what I'm going to do.
Right.
We had lots of fun for lots of years.
Lots of fun. So,
Yeah.
what is next?
I haven't figured that out yet. I'm thinking.
Yes, that's what.
No, I'm not thinking, because if I think, I won't do it.
Right, right. But you've had offers.
Yes,
Yeah,
I have
that's
had
interesting.
offers, but nothing that I'm ready to accept.
Well, there you go.
So we'll see.
Always ready though.
I'm
That's-
always
that's
ready.
the-
I've got my pad, my little pad and pen, and I got my plan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think you could write it on a sticky note.
Sticky notes. Yeah,
Exactly.
this is the plan.
Well, thank you so much. This has been great.
Well, I enjoyed it. I feel
yeah.
honored to be asked to do
Well,
this.
thank you. It's
Hope
quite.
I didn't mess it up too
No.
bad for you.
You didn't cuss at all. I'm so shocked.
I know, I am too.
I
'cause
learned all my cuss words from you.
Of course you did.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody does.
Yeah.
My grandchildren remind me every day about things I
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. That's awesome. They're good for that. All right. Well, thank you very much, Diane, and good luck on your next endeavor. I have a feeling it's just around the corner, and I
so
look
too.
forward to seeing what it
We'll see.
is.
Thank you, John.
Thanks.
We'll be together forever.
That's right.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks.